Chris
is
Cargill,
that?
Washington
Chris
Policy
Cargill.
Center. He's got moves too.
That's right. Chris Cargill.
Yeah.
He's the Eastern Washington director of the Washington Policy Center, a think tank, and we are so happy to always check in with you, Chris, on a Monday. Man, long past.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, man.
When you were playing that song, I was thinking, okay, so who gets to be labeled as Shorty? Because that's the first part of it is go Shorty, it's your birthday.
That's true. At 6'3", I
That's
don't
right.
think it's me. It's got to be, it might be you, Chris. Huh?
I think that was
It is, yeah, I think it is. I'm pretty short.
Was that 50 cents? 50 cents?
50 cents.
I think it is,
I
yeah.
think it is. Okay. All right.
That's the only 50 cents the legislature isn't looking to spend.
Yeah, that's right. No, be careful what you say. They might tax it.
Well, we're gonna cut. It's wrapping up. No special sessions, huh?
Well, it doesn't look like it, but, it's supposed to wrap up on Sunday, but not before legislators have to make some final decisions on some critically important issues, especially to working families and most Washingtonians. One of those issues, of course, being the state income tax issue that we've been following. The House Finance Committee just on Friday approved that income tax in our state, starting with capital gains. But the bill is a little bit different than what the Senate passed by one vote about a month or so ago. It contains a de facto emergency clause, which prevents the citizens the right to take it to a public vote via referendum. And why did they put that in there? Well, because they know that if the citizens had the chance, they would likely vote against it, as they have so many times in the past. It's also important to point out that there really is no emergency with this piece of legislation. In fact, even if it is upheld by the courts, which is a pretty big question, it doesn't kick in for several years, again, which puts into doubt any talk about an emergency. Also, a few notes about this House version of the income tax. It contains a marriage penalty, and there is no deduction for charitable giving. I mean, you typically don't see those things in other income tax bills that have been put forward in other states and nationally, of course. And now it heads back to the Senate, and it's tough to say if it has the votes they need over on the Senate side to pass it, because remember, it only passed by one vote last time, and if you make these changes, are those same legislators going to vote for it? Well, we'll have to wait and see.
Wow. Jeez. How crazy. So, I hear people saying, oh, this income tax, really not going to affect, it's just for the rich people. So how is this going to affect all of us?
Well, you're going to have to pay for it, so you have to set up a Washington State, essentially like a Washington State IRS.
Jeez.
So there's going to be a new state agency. You're going to have to file income tax returns with the state of Washington, because they have to check to see if you make the amount of money needed in order to qualify to have to pay this tax. And don't forget, that's exactly what they said about the federal income tax as well, that it's only going to apply to the rich and that it's only going to be a small amount. Well, that was when it got started, and look where it is now. So, once legislators get their foot in the door here, it's really easy to just expand it a little bit more, just a little bit more. It's only a cup of coffee more to more people each and every year. You can place a sure bet on that.
Well, then we got the carbon tax and the gas tax increases, right?
Yeah, those are still up for debate as well here in the final days, and a carbon tax, gas tax increase, and don't forget the low carbon fuel standard. They could all be linked together. If that happens, expect somewhere around a 50-cent per gallon increase in the cost of gas over the next 5 years or so, and that's, of course, sure to hurt many working families in our state as well.
Yeah, wow. So is this all really going to happen? I mean, if it's at the end of the week, do you see the state having a carbon tax and an income tax?
Well, they've left a lot of things for the final week, which it's hard to see how all of these things pass at once, because they're all so complicated and so controversial. But this has been a very unusual legislative session, and they have put a literal fence around Olympia, making it so that essentially the citizens cannot get in there and talk to legislators and testify and do the sort of things that we would see in a normal legislative session, which means that they're not necessarily hearing face-to-face from people who don't want these things to pass.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to say whether for sure it's going to pass or not. I think the other critical thing that people aren't necessarily paying that close attention to is this critical race theory training requirements that they're trying to pass. I mean, normally most people would support efforts at more diversity, but these four bills, which are Senate Bill 5044, 5194, 5227, and 5228, are extremely controversial. They require state employees to attend mandatory critical race theory training sessions, which are hateful and divisive, so much so that the Center for Latino Leadership, the Ethnic Chambers of Commerce, and the Washington Asians for Equality put a full-page ad in 9 state newspapers this past Sunday, including the Yakima Herald, asking the governor to veto these bills because they're so concerned about them.
Wow.